So before we discuss today's assignment problems, like whatever are there, I wanted to quickly discuss one of the problem which was there in yesterday's assignment. I had briefly explained and discussed that problem in the class yesterday, and I will be doing that today as well. Okay, so the question was this. This was the question, right? There is a list of me. Yeah, so there is a list of list of matrix. You need to search for an element in this list, okay, and then print the row number and the column number of that element if that is present. If not present, then not found, has to be printed. So ideally this was at least this much was expected from you guys, like you write a for loop, nested for loop kind of, like first will iterate over all the rows, the second loop will iterate over all the elements in that rows, and if column double equals to target, you set a variable found equals to true, and because you have found that element, you will break out of this inner loop, right? Because you have already found that element, you will break out of that inner loop, and if the variable is set to true, that found variable is set to true, you will come out of the outer loop as well. Okay, and then finally we will say if found, then print this, else this, right? At least this much you must have written, right? So if you observe here, there are multiple break statements that we would require in ideal scenarios. In ideal situation, if you write this program properly, if you handle all the scenarios and all the cases, there are multiple break statements that will be required to come out of this loop for a given scenario or some success criteria. If you want to come out of all the loops, you will require multiple break statements within the code. Right? Everyone agrees to this?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So this was what was expected or what was needed. Now, if I don't want to do this kind of thing, if I want to have more clean code, okay, so there is a way to handle this thing. Like if I mentioned in yesterday's class also that you can have some exception, like you can raise an exception. Okay, please do not annotate on the screen, please. Can you erase this, like whoever? Yeah, thanks. So we will use exceptions, and these exceptions are also used to come out of a nested loop. Okay, come out of nested loop. This is a feature which is not frequently used for exceptions. Like people think that the exceptions are only to handle some kind of unwanted behavior in your code and other things, but there are other ways also that you can use exceptions, or one particular concept you can use in some other area or some other place as well. So here this exception is that one particular thing where you can use exceptions to come out of these nested loops. Okay, now how you will do that? If column equals to target, found equals to true, instead of adding break here, you can add one exception, raise some value error, as we had discussed in other class. Like for now, always raise value error, or you raise divide by 0, anything is fine. Now the moment there is an exception, okay, the moment there is an exception, like that raise keyword and the exception, the program, and then you do not require this whole thing. The element found, okay, let me clear screen. Element is found, Here, instead of break statement, you will have raise value error. Okay. And the moment this exception is raised, this is not required. If this is raised, it will come out of all the for loop, right? Break will only let you out of the inner loop, or in the loop in which you were iterating. If you have a break statement in that loop, it will let you out only from that particular loop. But an exception will make you come out of everything. Okay. So here what you can do is, before this if block maybe, or outside this for loop, you can have try statement. And like, if this condition is true, if column double equals to target, found equals to true, raise value error exception. Okay. And then outside this, you will have that except block. That means for me here, what is the scenario? Exception is raised when the element is found. Usually, like in case of failure, exceptions are raised. Here I am raising exception in the case of success. So the element is found and exception is raised. So in except block, I will be handling the success criteria. Okay. And in except block, I will printing like in except block, I will be saying just simply you can have this, like if found, print the row IDX and column IDX. It should work for you. Is it clear, or is there any doubt or confusion here?
Sir, please explain once again.
Okay, sure. So this is what I'm doing. This was my original code. This is my original code. So in my original code, what I'm doing, I'm iterating over all the rows of the matrix. I'm iterating over the rows. So in first iteration, it will pick A, B, C, D. In second iteration, it will pick E, F, G, H. In third iteration, it will pick I, J, K, L. Now, for every row, that is like once A, B, C, D is picked, it will iterate over all the elements of the rows. That is, it will iterate over A, B, C, and D. And because at the end I have to print row and column, what I'm doing is I'm enumerating so that I have the index also with me all the time. With the element, index is also associated. Okay. Right. So with first, because I'm iterating over the rows, I'm enumerating and I'm saying that is my row IDX. And when I'm iterating over the elements, I'm saying column IDX, because that will be my column. Like if I pick A, B, C, and D, this is my row. So let's say 1 is coming with this, row IDX is 1. And then for every element, that will be the column. So column IDX is like, if you enumerate over the row, the index associated because of this enumerate function will be your column IDX. Okay. Now, if column double equals to target, so the value fetched from this, like value fetched from this elements, the rows which are there, from that, if you are fetching one particular element, and if that element is equals to target, then I'm saying found equals to true. I'm setting a variable that, like, I have to acknowledge that I have found that element. Okay. And then because I have found the element, I have to break out of the loop. After that, I need not check anything else. I have found the element, break out of the loop. Okay. And I will also need to break out of the outer loop. So originally what will happen? Like, let's say I was searching for element B. So I will, element is found. After that, inner loop, like iterating over this elements of the row, should stop. That's why we have this break statement. Okay. And also iteration of the rows should stop, as in like it should not pick E, F, G, H next. It should stop. So I will break out of the outer loop as well. And that is for this, like outer loop. Okay. Now, if I don't want these nested break statements, I don't want these multiple break statements, and in one go, if I want to come out of all the nested for loops, what I will be doing? I will be raising an exception. So I don't need this break statement. Instead of this break statement, I will say raise value error. Now what will happen? First, it is going to pick the rows. Let's say it picked A, B, C, D. It will iterate over the elements of A, B, C, D. And let's say my target for now is B. Okay. It is iterating over A, B, C, D. In none of like for some value, for some element COL, target will become equals to COL. So this will become true for the second element in this row. So once this become true, I will set the variable found equals to true, and I'm going to raise an exception. So the moment element is found, exception will be raised, and it will come out of all the two for loops in one go. It will come out of the for loop, and then simply print the row and column ID. So what I'm trying to highlight here is, through exceptions or using exceptions, you can come out of nested for loops. And if you do not use exception, you will need multiple break statements to come out of the nested loops which are there. And you will need to handle those things, or you will need to take like special care of handling all different scenarios when you are using multiple break statements. Okay, that all your break statements are working fine and other things. But just by adding one exception line over here, you can come out of this nested for.
Outside the for loop, instead of if, we will be writing try block.
Outside this for loop here.
Yeah, or it will be if.
No, 1 second. Where exception is happening? Exception will be raised somewhere here, right?
Yes, sir.
So wherever exception will be happening, you will be enclosing that piece of code, that block of code in try block. So either you do here, like outside this if block, or you do somewhere like here also is fine. It totally depends. Just do, if you're not able to figure it out, just do some hit and trial, you will be able to understand. But ideally, like wherever exception is happening, just outside that, you need to put your try and except block. So it will be try somewhere here, and except block you can put outside this. So in try block, what you can say, if this is found exception, and in except block, what I want to do, I will go in except block only when there is an exception, and when there is exception, I can safely say that element is found. Right? When there is exception, then element is found. And that if the element is found in except block, I will do whatever I'm required to do in case of when the element is found. So I need to print the row IDX and column IDX that I can print here. Adding try block here will not help, right? Because if you have exception here, that will not ever, this will never get caught. To catch an exception, you need a try block and except block. Otherwise, this will be an unhandled exception and you will go in error. Your code will break.
Okay, sir.
You're getting my point, right? Like,
yes, sir.
In whatever line or executable you feel that there can be an exception, that should be wrapped with this try and except block. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Apart from this, most of the questions were pretty straightforward, nothing much to discuss. This is what we were discussing yesterday. We were discussing recursion. We discussed recursion, solved one or two problems like factorial and Fibonacci series. We solved through recursion. We briefly discussed functional programming. We just discussed like lambda. And anyways, like I will be discussing that thing again. So I will be discussing lambda. Then we discussed exceptions in great detail, and this is some of the exception hierarchy. I have just copied and pasted it from Google. Like I just searched exception hierarchy and I have copied and pasted it from there. So this is some of the exception hierarchy or the tree that you can see with Python. So as I was discussing, we have the base exception first, okay, and then we have this exception class, and then a lot of the things are inherited from this exception class, and this is like parent and rest of them are child. This is one family, okay, this is another family, okay. And like here also, if you see, zero division error will be a separate family and arithmetic error will be a separate family, but these together are part of standard error family, okay, something that way. So knowing this hierarchy a little bit will help you, even if you like in object oriented programming. I can when we are discussing object oriented programming, I will make you understand like how to understand this parent class and child class relationship and other things that we will be discussing. But if you just remember those some of the key concepts that we discussed in tomorrow's class, as in like, first of all, whatever exception you feel can happen, use very specific exception handling. I mean, use very specific exception block or exception keyword. As in like, if you think it is divide by zero, use divide by zero exception. Okay, don't directly use, yeah, if there, like if you feel in your mathematical computation or calculation you are you might hit a divide by zero exception, then use that exception only. Do not go for its parent class exception handling or anything else. So don't go for like always use except, because except is going to handle everything for you, and this is not recommended. Or maybe except exception, not recommended, because this is going to handle everything, all kinds of exceptions for you. Be very specific. When I say my exceptions are going to be zero division error, so I will use that. Okay, arithmetic error is a parent class of zero division error, so arithmetic error can handle zero division error and some other errors as well. So all those things you need to consider, as in make sure that when you are talking about zero division error, use zero division error but not its parent, which will be able to handle some other kinds of exception also. Okay, only this much you need to remember for now, and you will be good to go. All right.
Sir, if we declare arithmetic error, then it will contain all the arithmetic error, including
Exactly.
zero division error also.
Yes, yes. So this is just a way of showing things here. Like we will have some other arithmetic errors also, which are like child of your arithmetic error. Now, you can think of this way. In your code, let's say you have multiple, you can have multiple errors. Let's say you have zero division error, or there is like float, something related to float. I do not remember the name exactly. So zero division error, float error, you can always check that Python documentation which I was suggesting. It has listed down around more than 70 to 80 inbuilt exceptions. Okay, so you can just go through it once. That is going to be helpful. It is not possible to cover everything from that list in the class, so some of the important ones anyways I will be discussing. So zero division error, float related error, and some of other errors which are there, they are all part of arithmetic error. Okay, now in your code, if like if you are in your except block you are writing something like this except arithmetic error, okay, then even if your code is having zero division error, it will be cached even if it has float error, it will be cached, or even if it has some other arithmetic error, that will also be cached. So you are not very specific. You are not pinpointing that what kind of exceptions can happen in my code. Okay. So that's why always use the, like, either you use just zero division error. Like if you think zero division error can happen, just use zero division error, or use the float error or whatever is there. Do not go for the parent class directly. Drill down to the child class and use that exception. Okay, I hope this part is clear to everyone. Okay. Now let's discuss today's assignment problem. One second, let me share my screen. Okay, you guys are able to see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so these are the problems from today's assignment. Okay, so I will just go through it one by one, and I will explain few of the concepts so that you are able to solve today's assignment. Okay? So the first question is to implement binary search using recursion. So for those of you who maybe are not aware of binary search, let me explain that a little bit. And you will be using recursive, like the recursion that we have learned, you will use recursion to solve this problem. Okay. So how binary search works is this way. You have a list. Okay. One second. You have a list which is sorted. Okay, the list is sorted. So the first criteria is the list has to be sorted. Okay. Let's take any list, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, the list is sorted, and then there, like, so as an input you will take a list which is sorted, and you will take one key element which you want to search in this list. So let's say the key is 5. One way of searching is I can go element by element and search like whether 5 is there in this list or not. So I will start from 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, and then 5 found. And I will return the index maybe of the 5. I have to return something, right? Like in function or something. So let's say we return the index of the element. This is one way of doing. The other way of doing is because this is a sorted list, because think this way, how you will be doing it manually. If you want, forget about programming. If you want to do it manually in some efficient way, and you know that list is sorted, and you want to take advantage of that, okay, my list is already sorted, how can I search for an element in that list? So one other approach could be find the middle element of this list. Okay, find the middle element of that list, and if the middle element is less than the key element, then search in this part of the list. But if the key element is greater than the middle element, or did I say it in the other order maybe? So if the key element is greater than the middle element, you will be searching on the right hand side. And if the key element is less than the middle element, then you will search on the left hand side. And if key element is equals to the middle element, you will simply return the index of this middle element. So these are 3 scenarios that you can see when the list is sorted and you are searching in this fashion, right? These are the 3 scenarios which you can see. Either you will be searching on the right hand side, or the left hand side, or the element itself, the middle element itself is the key you will be returning. So these are three scenarios which can be there. So if you observe closely, you will see that at every iteration, okay, at every iteration, I am discarding half of my list, right? Every iteration. In first iteration, I found the middle element and then I discarded half of this. Then I'm left with, like if the size of the list is n, I'm left with n by 2. Okay. And then again, I will search for middle element and again, I will discarding half of it. So at every iteration, like I started with n, in next iteration, it was n by 2. In next iteration, it will become n by 4. In next iteration, it will become n by 8 and so on. Right? So you are shortening, or you are discarding half of the elements of the list in which you are searching for in every iteration. This will make your code more efficient. This is a very standard algorithm or program in programming. So try to implement this through recursion. How you will be implementing this through recursion is the problem for today's assignment. Okay. What if there are even numbers of element in the list and thus we have two numbers in the middle? Okay, very good question, Avinash. But what you do while calculating middle element, you always do floor division in Python. Floor division as in, like, let's say there are middle even numbers, then you will have two middle elements ideally. But when you do floor division, you will get the element with the minimum index of the two. Floor division is going to give you just one integer value, right? And the rest of the things will be taken care of by your program. Okay. So let's see that through one example. Let's say my list is 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So starting index is 0, 1, 2, 3. What is the middle element here? I will just say 3 plus 0, like whatever the total size is 4, or maybe you can use the index. So it is 3 by 2, let's say. Floor division of this is 1. So my middle element is this. Let's say I have odd numbers, 5. So this will be 4 divided by 2, correct? So the middle element is 2. Middle element is this one. That's it. And rest of the things should be taken care by your code. You need not worry about 2 middle elements, 3 middle elements. Just pick one as a middle element and rest, like if the key which you are searching for is less than this middle element, search in this part. If it is greater, search in this portion of the list. And if it is same, return the index of this. And you need to solve this through recursion. Any questions here? Yes, no?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, perfect. So that was your problem number 1. Problem number 2, check if the input is a valid integer and you need to use exception. Don't use some string functions, is digit, is alpha, those kind of things. Don't use that. You have to use exception to check whether the input is a valid integer or not. Okay. Think a little bit. I know that for some of you it will be intuitive. You might have understood like what you need to do, but for some of them, like who are not sure, just think a little bit how I can use exceptions to check for a valid integer. Some of the scenarios you might have seen, like when working with taking the inputs from the user, we know that it is always a string value. And when you did some mathematical computation on top of that, it used to throw an error. That means some of the mathematical operations are not possible with string values. Or let's say if I pass 1, I can use some function int. So initially, like from user, it is coming as a string, that is 1, right? But if I convert this to int, it will be converted to a number. But what if I have something coming from the user as a, and now if I apply int to this is going to fail, because your Python will not understand how to convert a character a to integral values. So this is going to fail, and that is what you need to handle and say that it is not a valid integer. That's it. Okay, clear? Question number 2 is clear to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. Okay, third question. Given a list of weights and value pairs, given a list of weight and value pairs for items and a bag with capacity, okay, calculate the maximum item value that can be carried in the bag. Okay, so the question is something this way. I mean, I saw some suggestion also. Can we do third question using knapsack problem? This is a knapsack problem. There's something called as fractional knapsack problem. Okay, now what is knapsack problem? I will explain. Again, this is a very standard problem in programming languages. How to, and this is solved through greedy approach. Okay, these are some of the standard problems, but we would like you to solve it in your own way and maybe to explain in the lab sessions. Okay, so how you will be solving this problem, or let's understand this problem first. So there are some items that are given to you. So here, let's say this is my list of items, and I have a weight associated with the item and the value, total value. Like if for 10 units, what is the value? It's 60. For 20 units, this is item A, this is item B, this is item C. For 20 units, what is the value? It's 100. For 30 units, what is the value? It's 120. Okay. So there is a list given to you, which is tuple of weight and value. Okay, so as in like 10 is my weight and 60 is my value, 20 is my weight, 100 is my value, 30 is my weight, and 120 is my value. And then there is a capacity given to you, 50. So that you can think this capacity like this, there is a bag, there is a container which can hold items of weight 50 kgs or something. Now you want to pick items from this given list and put in this bag such that the weight doesn't cross 50. It is either less than or equals to 50 and has maximum profit. Okay, I mean, you are first putting more valuable items in this bag and then the less valuable items until you reach the weight limit of 50. That is the question. Okay.
Sir, can you explain the question once again?
Okay. Okay. So the question is, you have a bag which can hold some capacity, like 50 kgs value it can hold. And here you have a list of items and you have given, like, this is a tuple of list, and every tuple, each element in this list is a weight and value. So total weight for, let's say I have gold and silver or something else, okay, bronze or something. Now I have this list. So what I'm saying is I have 10 kgs of gold and value of that total 10 kgs of gold is 60. Okay, I have 20 kgs of silver and the total value of 20 kgs of silver is 100. Similarly, I have 30 kgs of bronze and the total weight of total value of bronze is 120. Okay, now I want to put these items in this bag so that I am within the limits or the like 50 kg limit that I have, like I can hold only 50 kgs of items here. So I want to pick elements from this list and put in this bag such that I am within the limits and I have maximum value items in this bag. Okay, so what I should be doing, if you think this way, like I have 10 kgs of gold which has value of 60, 20 kgs of silver which is of value 100, and 30 kgs of bronze which is of value 120. So out of these three, which one is the most valuable for me? To calculate like which one is more valuable to me, I will need to calculate the unit price of the element.
Bronze.
Yeah, okay, let me explain this. To calculate which one is more valuable, I will need to calculate unit price of every element over here, because the units are not same. This value is for 20 kgs, this value this value is for 10 kgs, this value is for 20 kgs, and this value is for 30 kgs. So I will need to bring all of them on the same scale. So I will calculate the unit price of gold. So what is the unit price of gold? 60 by 10, which is 6. Unit price of silver, 100 by 20, that is 5. And unit price of bronze, 120 by 30, which is 4. Right? So gold is more valuable. So I'm going to put the gold first. Now how I will put the gold, and I have to be within limits. Now the maximum weight of gold that I have is 10 kgs. So 10 into 60, total 60 I can directly put in the max in this bag, because it can store 50 kgs and I have gold only of 10 kgs. So I can put entire gold of 10 kgs in this bag and my net value will be 60. Correct? Now coming to silver, again, I have a weight of 20 kgs of silver. And what is the remaining weight that I can hold in this bag? 40 kgs, because 10 kgs I have already used. I need to add more, I can add more 40 kgs, right? Here in silver, I have 20 kgs, which is the next valuable item. I can put all of it here. So I can add silver of 20 kgs. This will become 20 kgs for me now. And the total value 100 will be added. So that is my total value. Now, how much weight is remaining? The remaining weight is 20 kgs and I have 30 kgs of bronze. So I cannot put everything in this bag. I cannot put the whole weight, the entire weight of bronze in this bag, because I will exceed the limit. I can put only remaining 20 kgs, like remaining 20 kgs of bronze I can put. So if I put that, this is 0 now, but I will put only 20 kgs of bronze. So 30 kgs where like every 10 kg was of value 4, I will multiply this with 20, which is like 80, and then I will add it here. So total will be 240. So this is what my output should be. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So this is something called as a greedy approach of solving problems, like where you will always look for the most optimal solution at every iteration, at every step. Okay, and this is a very important programming approach. A lot of things like greedy approach usually gives you solution in like it is sometimes faster than other approaches which are there, but it will not be possible for every possible problems out there. Okay, this will be possible for only some specific problems where you think the at every solution, the every intermediate solution, when you are trying to find the most optimal solution for that intermediate problem, then only you can apply this greedy approach. Okay, and this is one scenario where you can apply greedy approach and you can do that. So I have already given you the hints that you will need to calculate the value per unit, maybe for every 10 units, you will calculate the value of this your gold, silver, and bronze, and then finally you need to short them, right? You will need to short them based on their per unit value, and then pick the element, and you will sort them in descending order maybe, and then pick the element which is most valuable first, add it in the bag, subtract from the capacity, like whatever capacity that you have added, and keep doing this until you have exhausted all the capacity of the bag, or you have exhausted all the elements in this list. Okay, there are few questions. More valuable means minimum value. More valuable means minimum. No, more valuable means maximum value, right? More valuable means the unit price of the element is more. That's it. Okay. Here, the unit price of gold is 6. It is more valuable because for others, I have the unit price less than 6. So gold is more very valuable. Another question, should we take weight and value pairs separately? Again, it totally depends on your implementation. Okay. It totally depends on your implementation. I'm just giving you the algorithm. Think through and just apply the concepts. Sir, items is a tuple within a list because brackets are not given correctly. Where? One second. Sorry. This is a list. Okay. This is a tuple. This is a tuple. This is a tuple, and this is a list. Okay. These are both are larger brackets. Okay. I hope this question is clear. Okay. Coming to the fourth question. Again, forget the text and statement written in third and fourth question. Whatever I'm explaining, solve that way. I mean, here also, I have not been very descriptive and clear in my question statements. Okay. So you'll need to assume that you have a sequence which follows this pattern. Okay. You have a sequence which follows 2 to the power I multiplied by 3 to the power j multiplied by 5 to the power j pattern. As in, every element will follow or will be of this format. Now this I, j and k can have any values. And yeah, was there any question? Okay. I, j, k can have any values, and your sequence will follow this pattern. Okay. Now you will take an input from the user. You will take an input from the user and output the nth number in the sequence. As in, what will be the first number in the sequence? I will be 0, j will be 0, k will be 0. So it is 2 to the power of 0, that is 1, multiplied by 3 to the power 0, 1, multiplied by 5 to the power 0, 1. So the first number will be 1. Second number will be 2 to the power 1 multiplied by 3 to the power 0 multiplied by 5 to the power 0, that is 2. Third element will be 2 to the power 0, 3 to the power 1, 5 to the power 0, that is 3. Next element will be 2 to the power 2 and zeros for j and k, so that will be 4. And similarly, you will have 5, then 6. Then scenarios will change a bit. 7 and maybe 8 will be there. 7 will not be there. Then you will have 9. Then you will have 10, and so on. So basically, like, you will be giving a number n, and if I say number n is 5, then I will give the fifth element from the sequence. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, although it will look like it is simple, okay, but there are challenges which you are going to face. You will not be getting the right answers, because long back when I was solving this problem, I had issues understanding this problem. So that is fine. Okay. You can just try to solve this. So there is one naive approach. There is like one simple solution which you can always try. You can just iterate for some values. Like you can start from 1 till some number, and for every number in this list, go in a loop and check for the numbers which just has factor 2, 3, and 5. Okay. And have a counter, as in have a counter which will specify or which will let you know that you have reached this n value. Okay. Have that counter and increment it every time you find one element from this sequence you in this for loop. You can solve this problem with this approach as well, but it will be little I mean, after some values you will not be able to generate. Your all the resources, compute power of your laptop will be exhausted, and you won't be able to go beyond a particular n value. Okay. So just think little bit. Maybe if you're not, so just like if you want to solve this problem, you can use this approach which I'm suggesting here, but there are better approaches, better approach to solve this problem. Try that out. Okay. And let me also give you that algorithm which you can try. So let's say you prepare a list. Okay. You just have a list. Now I want the numbers which has this format. All right. So all the numbers, like any number that you take, any number in the sequence, I'm just giving you mathematical explanation to this problem. Yeah, come again. Okay, there are a few questions. Both question 4 and question 5 will be lengthy, as we have take many things into consideration. Yes, it will be lengthy. It will be lengthy. Now we are on that level of discussion that we will be solving such kind of problems. Don't worry, like if you are not able to fully solve the problems, it is good to solve these kind of problems because it will help you to understand a lot of concepts. Okay. So let's say we have a number in that sequence which is n. Okay. We have a number in that sequence which is n. The next number will be a multiple of either n multiplied by 2 or n multiplied by 3 or n multiplied by 5. Or not only this, let's say I have a number n which is like 1, 2, and some number n over here, and so on. Now the next number here will be 2 multiplied by any of the numbers from this list. So your next number, that is your n plus 1, will be any number from this remaining portion of the list multiplied by 2 or multiplied by 3 or multiplied by 5. Try to understand this way. First number is 1, right? Next, because I know it will be 2 to the power 0 multiplied by 3 to the power 0 multiplied by 5 to the power 0. So the first number is 1. That I'm very sure that the first number will be 1. Okay. Next number will be 2 to the power 1 multiplied by 3 to the power 1, 3 to the power 0 multiplied by 5 to the power 0. How I'm getting this number? I can also think this way: 1 multiplied by 2 or 1 multiplied by 3 or 1 multiplied by 5. The minimum of these 3 will be the next number. So next number is going to be 2. Now next number will be what? minimum of, I mean, what you have not already used, minimum of 1 into 2 that you have used, 1 into 3 not used. So 3 can be one possible number. 1 into 5, 5 can be one possible number. Or 2 multiplied by, yeah, so I have, yeah, 2 multiplied by 2, that is 4 can be one possible number. 2 multiplied by 3, 6 can be one possible number. And 2 multiplied by 5, 10 can be one possible number. So minimum of this, so that will be 3. Now, next number will be, I'm just trying to explain the algorithm or the idea behind solving this problem. Okay, now the next number will be, you do 1 multiplied by 2, you have already used. 1 multiplied by 3, you have already used. 1 multiplied by 5, so 5 can be one possible number. 2 multiplied by 2, that is 4. 2 multiplied by 3, 6. 2 multiplied by 5, 10. 3 multiplied by 2, 6. I have already mentioned here. 3 multiplied by 3, 9. 5 multiplied by 3, that is 15. So minimum of this, that is 4. So 4 will be your number. Okay. Similarly, you will be doing this for all numbers possible. Like if you, like n is there, then you need to find the nth element in this series, in this sequence. This can be another approach. Okay, there is a better approach. Still, there is better approach, but I would like you to solve in either of the ways. Either use the naive approach, maybe for the first 10-15 elements also, if you are able to solve this problem, it will be fine. But for some of you who are already like developing all these intuitions and you are getting good in programming things, you can try some more efficient ways of solving this problem. Okay, guys, any questions? Okay, in question number 5, how many numbers will be present in the sequence? Will it be 2, 3, 5 only, or we have to take that as well? So I already explained, right? This sequence will keep going on. Okay, you will be taking n as an input from the user, which is like nth number in that sequence. Okay, so there are questions like, sir, I can't understand this question. Okay, fine. Let me try to explain once again. Okay. Another question. How many of you have understood the question? Anyone?
Yes, I understood.
Just one, or like we have few numbers who have understood the question? Okay, so let me explain again. Okay, let me explain again. So this is the pattern in which your numbers will be generated or the sequence will be generated. This I, j, and k can take any values. Okay. Okay, I got it. I'm explaining the question again. Okay. So I, j, and k can take any values, and there will be a number n coming from the user, and then you will need to find or return the number in the sequence, the nth number in the sequence. Okay, now how you will start solving it? So one solution, one possible solution is you go in a while loop, while, and take a counter. Okay, that is, I have not picked any number so far. Now what you do, while count is less than your given number, if the count is less than the given number, what you do is, and you have another like number called as range, let's say, and store it as 1. Okay, now while count is less than n, what you do is, for this particular number range, calculate all the like whether that number is completely divisible by 2, it is completely divisible by 3, it is completely divisible by 5. I mean, the only factors of this number, the range number, is 2, 3, and 5. So because this is 1, we can say, yes, 2, 3, 5 is a factor. Just assume that, because 2 to the power 0, you can say it is a factor of 1. 3 to the power 0 is a factor of 1. 5 to the power 0 is a factor of 1. You can assume that way, and you can consider, okay, fine, it's correct. So print range. And what you do here is increment the value of count. That is, you have already used, or you have already taken or printed one of the value from the sequence. That's why I have incremented the count to 1. Now you also increment the count of range. A very naive approach, like one by one searching, I'm trying to explain here for those of you who have not understood the problem. Now you increment the range. Now what you do, again it will go into this, and here you check for all the factors. Check for factors of this range. Okay. Now initially range was 1, now range will become 2. Check for the factors. Now what will happen? If you check for the factors, the only factor of 2, 3, 5 is 2. So it is in my range. There should not be any factor other than this, is what the problem is. So that this is also true. Now you print 2. Next will be 3. You increment the range will be becoming 3. Now 3 is also having just factors 2, 3, 5. So 3 will be printed. Then 4 will be printed. Then 5 will be printed. Then 6 will also get printed. Now your range will become 7. Right? Your range will become 7. Now once your range becomes 7, when you check for the factors, 2, 3, 5 is not a factor of 7. So you will not print 7. You handle it that way. You will not print 7. What you will do next, increment the range again, make it 8. Now check for the factors of 8, 2, 3, 5. Yes, 8 has just just factor 2 to the power 3, right? So this is also true. Then you will print 8, then 9, then 10, and so on. So this can be a simple solution. Okay. I believe like you will be able to code this solution at least. Once you have solved this solution, try different other approaches that we discussed. For those of you who are comfortable solving this problem easily, try the other approaches and take this as a test case. Because you know that this solution is working for you, you take this as a test case to test your other solution. So what you do, you put a value of n here, get the output, check same thing over here, if you are getting the same output or not.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so solve this problem in this basic approach or naive approach, whatever is there. We are completely okay with that. Okay, but if you are able to solve this problem in this basic approach or basic solution or algorithm that I have provided, try for the other algorithm or solution. Okay, and test your solution, the other solution that you have developed, test using the first solution that you have worked. Okay. Is anyone having any doubts in any of these questions 1 to 4? Okay. Okay, this is not going to fail, Justin. Okay, if I made that statement, then I'm not correct there. It is not going to fail. Try this approach, solve this problem. It will keep going on. Whatever number you enter, it will give you the nth number in that sequence. Okay. What is IJK? IJK you can think of as powers of 2, 3, 5. So your numbers is 2. Your number is 2 to the power I multiplied by 3 to the power j multiplied by 5 to the power k. So your I, j, and k are powers of 2, 3, 5, and they can have any numbers, provided it is making this entire pattern or this entire computation greater than the previous number in the sequence. Just greater than the previous number in that sequence. Okay. 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 I think Lily, you are sending messages to me privately. Send it to everyone. Everyone is aware about the question. Okay. So the question is binary search. What is output expected? No output is expected. Okay. Take your own test cases. Take your own set of arrays and just test with your binary search. It should work for the code that you have written. And maybe in the lab, the trainers might test with their own test cases and validate your solution. Okay. In general, it should work like this problem. Your solution should in general work for any sorted array. Like if you provide a sorted array, you give a key, it will give you the index of that key. If found, if not found, return -1, because -1 cannot be an index. So return minus. Yes, no, can you just respond at least? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Thanks. Yeah. Okay.